Hi, and welcome to JazzGuitarLessons.com. Today we're going to be talking about chord construction, and I'm going to be demonstrating a method for learning chords that I wrote about some years ago in Just Jazz Guitar magazine. And over the years I've refined this method, and I've been working through this with many of my students, and it's very effective. It'll help you to come up with a lot of great new chord ideas on your own. And without further hesitation, let's jump right into it. So the first step in this method starts with the diminished seventh chord. And this is something I read about years ago. Pat Martino wrote about this in Guitar Player magazine back in the 1970s, and when I got with Barry Harris in the 80s, Barry talked about it. It was the importance of the diminished seventh chord. And we're going to look at a diminished seventh chord, and here's E diminished seventh, for instance. And we've got the notes E, G, B flat, and D flat. Now if we voiced it straight up the chord, it would go like that, but we can't put two notes on the same string, so we got the E here on the fourth string and the G over here on the first string, and then the B flat and the D flat filling in on the third and second string. And this is a voicing type that arrangers refer to as drop two, and we'll talk about that more later, but you might hear that term thrown around every once in a while, drop two voicings. This is the type voicing they're talking about when they say drop two, and pretty much all the chords we're going to make in this system today are based on these drop two chords. So here's E diminished seventh. The interesting thing about a diminished seventh chord is that if you move it 3 frets at a time, there's 2nd fret, 5th fret, 8th fret, 11th fret, 14th fret, it always has the same 4 notes. If you see, this first one had E, G, B flat, D flat. If I go up here, E, G, B flat, D flat. If I go to the 8th fret, E, G, B flat, D flat. If I go to the 11th fret, E, G, B flat, D flat. And up to the 14th fret, E, G, B flat, D flat, just like I had at the 2nd fret. So this is what we call a symmetrical chord. If you were to line those notes up on a circle, in a chromatic circle, or even on the circle of fifths, you'd notice, it makes a perfect square. And it turns out there are only 3 of these chords. So if we move up a fret, we've got F diminished seventh, and we've got the notes F, A flat, B, D. And if we take that chord and move it up 3 frets to the 6th fret, 3 more frets to the 9th fret, 3 frets to the 12th fret, 3 more frets to the 15th fret, it always has the same notes, just like the first one. We were working with the E diminished. Now we've got F diminished. This chord could be F diminished seventh, A flat diminished seventh, B diminished seventh, D diminished seventh. They all 4 have the same 4 notes. Any note in the chord can be the root. And finally, F sharp diminished 7. We've got F sharp, A, C, E flat. We can move it up 3 frets. A diminished 7, C diminished 7, E flat diminished 7, F sharp diminished 7. Again, any of the notes in that diminished 7th chord can be the root. Now if we go up a half step from there, look, we're back at G diminished 7. Well, that's the same chord as this E diminished 7. Now that's the first part. Here's where it gets fun. There was a reason why I didn't play the diminished 7th at the 1st fret, because what we're going to start doing now is lowering notes. And we're going to make all our dominant 7th chords by lowering notes from the diminished 7th. So if we take this E diminished 7 and we lower the E note, there's an E flat dominant 7th chord. E flat, G, B flat, D flat. And if I were to lower the B flat note, it's an A 7th chord. If I lower the D flat, it becomes a C 7th chord. And if I lower the G, it becomes an F sharp 7th chord. So right there, from that E diminished chord, or G diminished, B flat diminished, D flat diminished, however we want to call it, we have E flat 7, A 7, C 7, F sharp 7. They all come from that diminished. That's 4 of our 12 keys. That's a third of the keys right there. Move up a half step, there's F diminished, A flat diminished, B diminished, D diminished. From that one, we can lower any note to make E7, B flat 7, D flat 7, and G7. Up a half step from there, F sharp diminished 7. Lower any note to make F7, B7, D7, A flat 7. And right there, that's all of our keys, all 12 keys right there within that little 4-fret range. So I want you to study those chords, and the next thing we're going to be doing with them is putting them together to play the whole circle of fifths, to play all the keys within a 4-fret region of the guitar neck.